get to be any little thing that we want to be. No matter what comes our way, we'll be together, together.
Welcome to Homeschooling Down South. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Kat. We're two Southern homeschooling mamas sharing real talk, resources, and inspiration for life and learning in the Southeast.
Each week, we'll chat with inspiring voices in the homeschool community, highlight must-see nature spots and field trip gems, and share resources from across the region.
Whether you're new to homeschooling or a seasoned pro, pull up a chair and join us as we celebrate the joy, freedom, and community of homeschooling down south.
We'll laugh together, we'll learn together, find the joys in life together, give each other grace and space to be.
Welcome back to Homeschooling Down South, y'all. It's a Nature Week, and we're excited for this one. We went to Reflection Writing Arboretum and Nature Center in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it's an incredible experience. I've been several times. Kayla came on a field trip this fall, and so we're going to tell you all about our experiences there. It's beautiful.
And fun fact, just right at the top, I'll tell you, it has nothing to do with horseback riding, which is what I initially thought. And
Yes.
I couldn't go the first year that our Wild and Free group went because my husband was coming back from his deployment. And I said to Kat, I'm so bummed because my daughter loves horses. And she was like, cool. Why does that matter? Then we
We're
realized
not
what was
seeing
happening.
horses.
And she was like, no, it has nothing to do with horseback riding.
It's a nature center. And I have tried to dig and find out where the name came from. And I have not been successful in finding out the origin of the name. I did find out that it's been around since the 70s.
Oh, wow.
It was started. It was a vision of a husband and wife to preserve some nature, to set aside nature in Chattanooga. And it's on Lookout Mountain. It's on that drive up Lookout Mountain. So, I mean, it's beautiful. It's set apart. And that was their goal, was to set apart this piece of land. So I don't know if it started out as a riding space, but they have a lot of land. They do have horses in pasture. I've never seen anything about riding them. So I don't know that that's something to put on your bucket list, but there's so much cool stuff to do there. So
How did you
go ahead.
find out about this place?
It's a really sweet story for me. So if you follow along on my personal social media and the things I write about, my whole vision for my homeschool is to try to recreate the atmosphere of this summer camp that I spent 17 summers at as a camper, and then a leader in training, and then a leader, and then I was the director. And that was my place of belonging when I was growing up. Home wasn't necessarily where that was happening, and this summer camp was. And so I want to create that atmosphere in my home. That's kind of my guiding light of my homeschool. And one of my best friends is someone that I met when we were leaders in training at that camp. And she and I were best friends all through high school. And we even were roommates in college for a little bit. And she moved in 2008 to Huntsville, Alabama from California. And then I moved in 2013 to Atlanta. And we're not that far away from each other. And so we do have the opportunity to get together every once in a while. And she has a son who is almost exactly to the day 3 years older than my son. And so it's been really fun in this season to get together and do things with our sons. And Chattanooga tends to be just the right spot for us to meet up. It's about an hour drive for me, and it's longer for her. It's about 2 hours and maybe like 15 minutes, but she doesn't mind doing it every once in a while. And we go to the zoo, and we've been to the aquarium. We just like to get together and let our boys hang out, and we get to visit and catch up. And it's just really sweet that this relationship that sprung from camp is so close to me here and now. The first time that we met up with them in Chattanooga, it must have been in 2022. It was Thanksgiving week. We met up. They went and spent the weekend there. They got a hotel. And so we did Friday and Saturday in Chattanooga with them. And on Saturday, we went and rode the Tennessee Valley Railroad with them. It was something that was on their bucket list. We'd never heard of it before, but they invited us along. And when we got done with that, we had a little bit of time between the railroad and whatever our next, I think maybe we had zoo tickets or something at a specific time. I can't remember exactly what we were doing later in that late afternoon and evening, but we had something reserved. Oh, I think we had dinner. Maybe it was just dinner reservations in downtown. And so we were trying to figure out what are we going to do in between. And they said, there's this really beautiful nature preserve that we've been to. And we put it into our GPS, but we like followed them up the winding road of Lookout Mountain. And they brought us to Reflection Riding Arboretum and Nature Center. And so it's like extra sweet to me that this friend from camp is the one who introduced me to this place. And we went, like I said, it was the weekend after Thanksgiving. So it was fall. It was beautiful. The leaves were all changing colors. We did a hike. And then when we were done with the hike, it was on Saturdays, they do birds of prey demonstration. And as we finished the hike and were rounding around back to the nature center, they had some, I believe, an owl and either a hawk or a falcon, one of the like taloned birds that would hunt. And we just ended up getting to see this birds of prey demonstration without anticipating it or knowing. It just was a really sweet adventure. And that was just right after I'd started the Wild and Free group. So I had it in my mind for a while that the Wild and Free group should come here and check this out. But I kind of sat on it for a little bit.
So you can go there just on your own. You don't have to have a group or book a tour.
Correct. You do need to
Okay.
pay to be on their grounds, and they do have memberships. So if you
Oh.
are a member, then you get to just go and enjoy whenever you want. When they're open. Yeah, and they have tons of trails. I've not explored all the trails that they have. And they also put on events year round. The one that I'll share, because I think it's a sweet idea, and I know most of the people listening to our podcast, because we've checked out our demographics, are mostly women. We're going to make the assumption they're mostly homeschooling mamas. And they do a really sweet Mother's Day event every year. I've never been able to go. It's on the Saturday of Mother's Day weekend, but it's brunch and a native plant. You get a native plant with your brunch, and
Oh,
they have music and it's
fun.
outdoors. They also have a concert series where you can come, and they have a summer one and a fall one. You can come and they have a band playing outside. At least in the past, I don't know that I've seen it this year, but you could add on to your summer concert night, you could add on camping on their grounds. But like in the fall, they're doing like fires and s'mores. And in the summer, it's more like fireflies and listening to
Sure.
the band, and, bring your camp chairs or your picnic blanket and be outside on their gorgeous, like I cannot emphasize how gorgeous this piece of property is. So really, it's just ways that they're opening it up for you to come and enjoy their space.
So talk to me about setting up the field trip. If someone wanted to take a field trip, take their homeschooling group and do a field trip, and I guess school groups too. I mean, we saw several. The interesting thing is that the property is so large. We kind of encountered in our little path, we would see that there are other groups, but you don't ever feel like it's crowded. I mean, for the most part, it kind of felt like we were the only people there. So talk to me about setting up that field trip and what that looked like.
Yeah, I will. I will also say one of the groups that we encountered and saw is the forest school. So
Mm-hmm.
they have a forest school on site. They also have summer camps. So if you're there with a group, you might see one of these groups while you're there. But the form to fill out to do a field trip is the same if you're a homeschool group or if you're a school. So it's that they have this format and you just fill it out for your needs. And we've taken the Wild and Free group twice now. And what I really like about the process is you get to make some choices. So they have a form on their website. It's under their education tab, and you just start filling it out, and it's just the basic information, right? Like how big is your group, and you get some choices in like what time of day. I think they offer like a mid-morning-ish start time and an early afternoon start time. So you can pick what works best for your group. But then you get into like the actual programming and you get to make these choices. So they offer 6 or 7 different types of programmatic topics. And there's things like the first field trip we went, I chose log rolling. So we spent a really good portion of our time looking for salamanders and rolling logs. And we also picked, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the second one. I might have to look it up. But the third thing I know I picked for that first field trip we took is they have a nature playscape area that they've cleared out, and they have bamboo sticks, and the kids get to just free play in there, free build, just be outside in nature and do what things they want to do. Let's see. What was the other one we did on that first trip? I think we did that one was more in the fall, and I think we did their More Than Leaves lesson. So you get 3 lessons in a field trip. and you have one of their naturalists guiding you through all of this. So as the homeschool chaperone parent, you're just along for the ride. Like you get to enjoy and learn from them as well. And then this second year that we went in August. And so this year we did the pollinators and plants hike. We did the nature play again because that was so great the first time. And I think we maybe did from the ground up, which is like learning about the whole ecosystem. No, that doesn't sound right.
I mean, we did log roll.
We did log roll. She did it as part of, I think, our pollinator and plant hike. Or maybe we
Okay.
did, yeah. Or maybe I did that again because it was so fun. But it's great. It's so easy and seamless. You get there. And for homeschool groups, they have to send you an invoice. So if you're the leader, you're going to get this invoice that feels a little scary. But you can coordinate with them to say, everyone's just going to pay once we get
When
there.
they get there.
And they've been really kind and flexible with me. The first year we went, we had probably 5 or 6 families signed up, and morning of, people, it was November, people were sick,
Sure.
and they just started bailing, and we ended up going with 3 families, and I was worried that they were gonna say, "You can't come anymore," like, but they don't have a minimum. Their response actually to me was, "You know what? A smaller group is gonna make it that much more rich. Y'all come
That's
on.
awesome.
We do this with one family." And then this last year when we went, I think we had 5 families
Yeah.
go, and it's just they do a really lovely job. They're very accommodating for the homeschool format. And it's just a really good time because the kids are just immersed in this really beautiful nature center. It's a little bit more rustic than other nature centers I've been to. Like when I compare it to other nature centers we've talked about on the podcast or ones that I've experienced and been to, I would say Reflection Riding, Arboretum, and Nature Center, it feels a little less curated and a little more like you're truly in nature, but you're
Yeah.
well taken care of by their staff.
Well, and you're very guided, and she talked us through and showed us things that I would have never picked up if I was just, like, on this walk, and I enjoyed that aspect. I really appreciate when the outdoorsy folks, I don't wanna say dumb it down because that's not it, but they, like, take into consideration that there are those of us who want to be in the outdoors, but just need a little hand-holding, you know?
Yeah, they do a good job, I think, like you said, of pointing things out, like drawing your attention to things in nature that, like you said, you might not notice, and then also helping you learn about them. And I really think that they are very skilled in particularly doing this with kids.
Yeah. Yeah, because they were really good about, when you go places with kids and stuff, a lot of times it's, don't touch this and don't do this. But she explained why we're not going to move things around here. Here is not where we get to pick things up off the ground. Please don't pick any of these flowers. And here's why. Let's not disturb this spider. And here's why. And even, I think we came into contact with a Joro spider.
Mhm.
And one of the kids asked, like, "What are y'all gonna do with it?" Because she had said, like, they're invasive and whatever, and so she did talk about, this is a situation where we may have to, remove that spider and, ultimately unalive it. But she talked about why, because it is an
Yeah.
invasive species and our job is to protect our ecosystem. And if this spider is harming our ecosystem, then it is our responsibility to do that. And so I really liked how she didn't beat around the bush, but she
Yeah.
explained the reasons why. And I felt like all the kids were super receptive to it, to the point that when we went on a recent wild and free hike, one of the kids spotted a Joro spider and was like, "Well, we got to do something about this."
Yeah.
Which that's above my pay grade, but,
Yeah, we don't deal with the Joro spiders except for just if a kid wants to move it away from a pollinator, then I'm fine with that. But
yeah.
we're not gonna take that into our own hands. I recall there was also an invasive plant,
Mhm.
and she was telling them that she was gonna need to come and like pull. She spotted them while we were on our hike, and she was gonna come back later and pull them.
Yeah.
And so some of the kids asked, could we pull this out? And she said, sure. And she taught them about how to dispose of it properly. I'm remembering now what the third thing we went and did was, and it's actually a really cool story.
What Which one?
So the third activity we did on the field trip this year was we went to the wildlife encounter.
I didn't realize I thought that was anytime. I didn't
No.
realize you had to choose that. Oh my gosh. Okay, dear listener, this should be the first thing that you choose. That was
Well,
the coolest part of the whole field trip to me.
that and maybe the nature playscape. I don't know. The nature playscape is really for
Yeah.
the kids.
For the kids, yeah.
We stood around and talked, but like that's also nice too.
Yeah, 100%. Because there is a little bit of a border. So, like, you kind of know your kids are corralled in this place.
Yeah.
But, like, we could also make a little nature play place in our backyard or whatever. But I'm
Sure.
not seeing any bald eagles in my backyard last time I checked.
So let me tell you the story of how we got to the point of adding the wildlife encounter onto our field trip in 2025 because it's connected to our field trip in 2024.
Okay.
I did not, and now I'm remembering all three of the ones I chose in 2024. So it was the playscapes, the log rolls, and we had a bird encounter. So we started our field trip in the nature center. Sorry for this like wonky journey I'm taking the listener on today. We didn't say it at the beginning, but I'm battling a little bit of something. You might hear it in my throat. But so my brain is maybe not firing as good as it usually does. But so that first field trip, we did a bird encounter. They brought in an American kestrel into the nature center building and did a little lesson with her. And then we went out and did the log rolling. And then we went and did the nature playscapes. And they had told us, bring your lunches. And this is what they said again for our second. Bring your lunches, stay on the property as long as you like, and enjoy, go on another hike, take some time to enjoy the parts of the property you didn't get to see on your field trip. But that part's going to be unguided. So as we were getting our lunches out the first year and going to get settled to eat our lunches, we heard wolves howling. And the kids all were like, there's wolves. Oh, are we really hearing wolves howl? And our guide had already said goodbye to us, but she happened to be walking past us and she's like, yeah, those are our red wolves. She went back into her office and came back out to me and said, hey, I just checked my calendar. I don't have anything going on this afternoon. I know you didn't add it onto your field trip, but when y'all are done eating lunch, if you want, I'll take them to see the animals. So we basically got this like fourth element added on after lunch. And it was so cool that I knew going into the field trip for 2025 that I was going to add that. So we did in 2025, our things were the pollinator walk, which she did end up doing log rolling on that walk with us, the nature playscape, and the wildlife encounters. And the wildlife encounters are awesome.
And you're walking to each place. So even though like you've chosen these three things, you get so much more because on the journey to the next thing, she was talking a lot about the plants and the wildlife and all that jazz. And so, the whole thing was very informational and educational.
And I think she might have added in the log rolling because some of the kids who had been there the first year were like, are we going to roll these logs? Because they remembered from the year before that they had done that. And she was like, sure, why not? So they're very flexible. They go with the kids. There are all of their animals that are in their wildlife encounter. So it's not like, it doesn't feel like a zoo because you can't just go walk through this on your own. It's gated and locked. You have to be guided through that area by someone on their team. And all of the animals that they have there, with the exception of the red wolves, are animals who were injured or sick and brought to the nature center for rehabilitation and then deemed unable to be re-released into the wild. And so now they're kept there and we get to learn about them and we get to talk about them. But one of the things I really liked is she was able to say things like, if you think you're just throwing an apple core out your car window, and that's fine, it's from nature, it'll just decompose, but it sits there in the road, here comes a vulture or an owl to eat it out of the road. And the reason that these birds are here is they got hit by cars and they can't fly anymore. And so I think it was a good lesson for kids to just, you might think you're taking enough steps to protect the nature around us, but take it a few steps further and think about how are these animals going to interact with the way that we interact with the environment. And then the red wolves are a really cool story too, because red wolves in the United States, they are a native species and they were hunted basically to extinction, and except for a few remaining wolves. It was just because of people not knowing that, they saw wolves and they thought, oh, that's going to eat my cattle, that's going to interfere with my farming and or like even just the safety of my home and my kids or whatever. And so they weren't hunted for anything except for that feeling of this is a dangerous animal and I need to keep it away. And then once it was realized that they're almost gone, some protections were put in place, and there are now 17 in the wild in North Carolina in a specific nature preserve in North Carolina. But then there are these nature centers all over the country, or at least the Southeast, because I know I've been to several in the Southeast that have red wolves, where they are trying to help breed more that can be then released back into that population that's in North Carolina. And so that's part of what is going on at Reflection Riding Arboretum and Nature Center. And
That's
I
awesome.
like hearing those stories because it makes me want to go back.
Yeah.
It makes me want to support that because I think it's really great education for our kids, but I also think it's important to recognize that these are all God's creatures and we need to be stewards. That's what we were called to as image bearers, to be stewards of these animals. And I think that they're modeling that in a way that's really important for me to think about just as a person, but also for me to think about as a homeschooling mom. And how do I
Mhm.
talk about God's creation with my kid? And I think these kinds of encounters make that more tangible and realistic. Like, these wolves are here because they need our help to get back to where they should never have gotten.
Right.
Or I didn't say that very well, but they need our help to get back to thriving, and they never should have
Right.
been hunted to that point. So,
Yeah, and I think it's really cool for our kids, especially at this age, to get to experience that because I, as a 37-year-old woman, am just learning about that with the red wolves. But my 8 and 6-year-old are going to grow up with that knowledge. And I think like these formative years, when you build this knowledge base in them during these years, that is something that will stay with them. And one of the things that I just love about the homeschool journey, I mean, I would say maybe top 3 favorite things, is the ability to go and learn like this.
mhm,
We're not reading about red wolves in a book. I mean, we can also supplement, sure, but we're gonna go see them and we're gonna talk about them, and they're real. They're not just some endangered species that we've read about. These are real wolves that they have witnessed. They've witnessed their environment and their little dens, and, I think that's just so much more impactful, and I mean, I love that my kids are getting this experience. I think that's
yeah.
just so valuable and so cool, and, it enriches our homeschool.
And it's nice when you're being led by someone else because I think we often feel like, "Oh, I have to know every little detail." And so it's nice when you're being led by someone else. You're learning alongside your kid, and that's modeling for them that learning doesn't stop when you hit a certain age or because you're a grown up. But also it's this opportunity to hear from someone who really they interact with and care for these animals every day, and so they can teach our kids that lesson in a way that we can't. I've never fed a red wolf, and
Right.
I don't think that's part of his plan for me. I mean, I might have just said that, and now I'm gonna go feed red wolves,
I would like for
but
it to be part of his plan for me because I have intense cuteness aggression, and I just wanted to just, like, give it a big ol' hug. It was so cute and fluffy. Probably not the best idea, but I am the
no.
epitome of why not friend if friend shaped. So, I have to be careful. I probably shouldn't be let near the wolves.
But how cool is it that this person who loves them because she has this relationship of caring for them was the one who taught our kids about that instead of us. And not that there's anything wrong with us like opening up our curriculum and learning
Sure.
alongside them that way, but this is just a different way and it shows them that learning takes all different forms. And it's so helpful when we've been learning about other animals in our homeschool that are either near extinction or endangered, and I'm trying to help my son understand what that terminology means. I can go back to the red wolves and say, remember this story, and this animal's having a different experience. The reasons why might be different, but the outcome is the same, and that we're called to be stewards of all the creatures.
Well, and the bald eagle was really cool because, we are a very patriotic family. So we see lots of bald eagles in literature and, stuff that we do. And it was so cool. No, that is a real animal that exists. And we're looking at it right here. And I don't know that I've ever been that up close and personal to a bald eagle before. And it was just so neat to see. I mean, how big the talons were. And I mean, just so beautiful. And the owls, I loved the owls, our family, because my husband and I both graduated from Kennesaw State. Hooty hoo.
Hooty hoo.
Hooty hoo indeed.
I'm also an alum.
We have all the owl things everywhere, and so it was really cool because 'cause they've seen the KSU had, like, a live owl that would come to the football games.
Sturgis.
Yeah, and so they've seen that before, but it was neat to see a couple different types of owls, and, they each came with their story of how they got to, the nature center, and I don't know, it was really cool and special too because it wasn't like a zoo. We were the only ones in that space at the time, and it was very peaceful, and it was like, I want to go do that again.
It's a pretty special place. I think we were also there during feeding time for the eagle, so we really got to see the
Yeah,
eagle, like, how it uses its talons and
to
its
rip it
beak,
apart.
and yeah, it was a little intense. And
It's intense.
I believe it's a human has made a replica of an eagle's nest, but it is, like, the
Yes.
size that an eagle's nest would be and the materials, and we all got to go sit in that and
Yeah,
take a picture, and so that's fun for the kids too. They get to feel like they're
yeah,
eagles.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure my son flew around for a while after that.
They also had an area where you could stand up against it and spread your arms out and compare your wingspan to the wingspan of other birds of prey,
Yes.
which was
Yes.
really neat to put that into perspective as well.
Yeah. So I will say this field trip, I love it. I plan to keep doing it year after year with our Wild and Free group. It is a little more on the pricier side of the field trips that we take and the field trips that you've heard us talk about on the podcast. So this one is $10 a kid. And I think they've got a cutoff of either 2 or 3, and anyone under that age is free. But starting at like preschool age and up, it's $10 a head. And the first year we went, chaperones, that's how they phrase it because they're looking at it from that school perspective. But in our case, moms each also had to pay. But this year they switched that and asked just for a donation from the moms. So that I think is part of why we got a higher attendance this second year
Yeah,
over the first year, because moms didn't have to pay unless they wanted to give a donation. So I'll just put that out there. We like to be transparent with all the information about
yeah,
what things look like. But I think it's worth it
yeah.
to have that one special field trip a year that is a little bit more on the expensive side, but you get so much
Mhm.
bang for that buck. And they really do invite you, spend the whole day here. Like, now that you're on the grounds, bring your lunch, and there's beautiful places. There's picnic tables around, there's benches. Bring your lunch. And the first year we all ate lunch and then we went and climbed. And this blew my mind because I'm from the redwood forest, but they have a kind of redwood tree that I had never heard of before. It's apparently native to China. It's so different than the kind that grow on the coast of Northern California and Southern Oregon. It's got branches that are low to the ground and that go out, which is very different than those trees. They're very tall and their branches are way up high, like you could never reach them. But she told us at the end of that wildlife encounter that we got tacked on to the end, she said we have a really good climbing tree. And so we ate lunch, we did the animals, and then we went over to that climbing tree. I mean, we really spent the whole day there, and they're very generous with letting you hang out and enjoy the whole space. So, like, you can get that $10 a kid worth out of the day if you plan to do your field trip in the morning, bring lunch, stay in the afternoon and play and hang out and enjoy how beautiful it is.
Yeah, I would like to do that for the next field trip because we didn't bring our lunch this time, and I would really like to be able to bring our lunch. I would like to do the climbing tree, and I really wanna go back over to the area. So we went to this one area that was over water, and I can't remember what she said about the area, but it was really pretty, and the kids really enjoyed seeing, like, the wildlife in the water, and I know
Yeah,
there's an area where you can sit over there because it was right near I guess they use there's, like, a little house, and I guess they use it for their nature school, so we could even eat lunch at that little area.
yeah, it's a tree house. They had, like,
Yes.
built it into the trees, and then they have all these bridges that go across the ponds and the water, and the first time we ever went there with my friend from Alabama, a tree had come and smashed that whole thing, and it was all caution taped off. We couldn't go to it, and then they were rebuilding it last year when we took the field trip, and I think we got to go through parts of it, but it was completely rebuilt this year, and it's really cool. There's doors with stained glass windows, there's a porch swing inside the house, and it's just really cool. It makes you really think about how can I because it you can tell the intention is to build into the nature, not to take away from the nature, but
Right.
to make it part of the nature, and it makes me think about because we talk all the time about building a tree house for my son now that he's getting older. How do we do that so in a way that makes it feel like it's part of the environment
Yeah.
instead of like taking away from the natural environment? It's a really cool spot on their property.
Yeah, my kids left there determined that we were going to build a tree house. We have not to date, but
But it hasn't been that long. It's only been a few months.
right.
But it's inspiring and it's
Yeah.
just a really cool place. If I lived in Chattanooga or even if I lived 30 minutes closer to Chattanooga, I would probably get a membership there.
So is the $10, and if you don't know this, that's fine, but the $10 is for the tour. If you just wanna go there and walk around yourself, is it still $10 or is the price different?
I think the price is different. I can't quite remember from all those years ago when we went with our friends what the price was that day, but I can tell you what the price is. So they have a native plant nursery that you can go shop at during the spring and summer season as well, just as, like you would go down to the nursery, but everything
Yeah.
that they have is native plants. Okay, so the way that they say it is it's making a donation
Okay.
for your visit.
So
So
you
that's
just
nice.
yeah, you just pay what you want.
Yeah. They're a nonprofit and they do have up in their nature center lobby plans that you can see that they're planning towards the future of how they want to grow. So if you can, I would say donate because they have a lot of really cool plans coming up of what they want to build.
And I know you can't go into the wildlife area without a guide, but I feel like the treehouse
And the hike,
and the nature play area, all that.
the nature play area is just for field trips.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, you could still do the walk. I remember when we walked around that first like lake area and we were standing right by a bunch of these beautiful flowers and there was wildlife on the lake. And I mean, the kids, I feel like we stayed at that spot for a little bit. The kids really enjoyed that. I mean,
Yeah.
we have both of us have the Seek app on our phones. And so we were seeking everything. Not that we
Yeah.
needed to because she was able to tell us, but the kids just like to do that.
They do.
So I feel like there's still a lot to do. Even, if you just wanted to go take your school stuff and do school there for
Yeah.
the day, you
Yes.
could.
And there's horses in the pasture.
Oh, yes, beautiful.
And that, like, it's just like a beautiful when you're standing and looking and the mountain is behind the horses. It's just gorgeous. And in the fall in particular. So a family membership, and now I'm thinking I might even just go get one. A family membership is $70
And that's for the year.
for the year. And that gets you discounts on all of their events. If you want to go to their Birds of Prey, every Saturday they have a Birds of Prey demonstration. If you want to go to that, and it's a great place to support. So
Yeah. So if you had that membership and our group went for a field trip, would you still have to pay the $10?
well, that's a good question. That's good. It's ages 3 and up, by the way.
Okay.
$10 per student, ages 3 and up. And that's a really good question. I guess yes, I would think so. Yes, because you're still paying for the naturalist
Gotcha.
guiding the tour, is how I would assume. And you're paying for the access to those areas that are just for field trips. But it's a question worth asking if you're leading a group and you're
Yeah.
planning a field trip and you have a membership. I think it's always a good question to ask: is do I still need to pay this?
Yeah. So do you have a homeschooling win from either the center as a whole or a particular field trip?
It feels like a win just to have found it and the story that I have and the connection that I'll always have with my friend bringing us there. And every time we go there, I text her. I'm like, look where we are. But from this most recent field trip, man, my son was the questions king. He had,
What's the question?
he had so many questions and he also knew so many things. He just was so engaged.
Yeah.
But I think what was great about that, and he does better at this, one, when we're outside and doing naturey things, and two, when I'm the homeschool parent there, he is very respectful about how he interacts with, and he really just connects with, if we're on a nature hike with someone, he really connects with the guide, and he'll just ask them a lot of questions, but he does it in a way that is, I think, to them kind of precious because it's their thing, right? They love it, and they love that a kid is into it. But he's just so engaged, and I love seeing him that engaged. And
What-
it's fun when it's with his friends too.
And his questions weren't like, the word that keeps coming to mind is twaddle, but that's the Charlotte Mason verbiage for books that she doesn't feel like are enriching. But that's the that's the vibe. His questions weren't your typical little kid questions, right? Like you could tell he's processing what he's seeing and experiencing, and he's asking these very logical questions and these questions that hold some weight. So,
And
I
they
think,
build on, like,
yeah,
he'll ask a question and he'll get an answer, and then he'll ask a question that builds on that. They're very intellectual questions
yeah,
about nature. It's it's where I can see how much he is a nature kid and
yeah.
how this is where he thrives and how he learns best. And we do so much of that, but it was fun that day to be doing it alongside his wild and free friends and the other kids getting to see like that this really is his jam, but also like him getting to hear other kids' questions and see how other kids respond to the answers from his questions. We just don't get a lot of that dynamic. And so it was precious to get to do that in such a special place.
Well, and I talk a lot about positive peer pressure because my oldest in particular, we have learned with her that sometimes the best way to get her engaged in something is to get her around other kids who are also doing it. That's how we got her to learn to ride a bike finally. She was so terrified of riding her bike. And then we went camping with a whole bunch of friends, and all the kids are out there riding their bikes. And wouldn't you know it, by the end of that camping trip, she was riding her bike like a pro. And so I loved being able to do that experience as a group because my daughter got to see other kids being engaged with it. And I think that helped her engage with it as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, she loved talking with our sweet guide and specifically learning all about the flowers and
And there
um,
were butterflies out.
yes,
We did that pollinator walk, and it was late August, and the butterflies were just in full force that day, which a lot of the kids really enjoyed
yeah,
that aspect in particular.
yeah. Well, I know you said it earlier, but let's remind the folks, where can they find you?
I'm at Recreating Camp on all the socials and recreatingcamp.com. And Kayla, where can they find you?
You can find me at scratchmadesimple _ on Instagram and at scratchmadesimple on TikTok. You can find us at Homeschooling Down South on all the socials. And if you have a cool nature place that we should go check out, or you know of someone that we should chat with who's doing big things in the homeschool community, or you're using a program that you absolutely love and you want us to dig into it, please email us at hello@homeschoolingdownsouth.com. And make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening if you enjoyed today's episode. And we would love for you to share the podcast with your homeschool friends, your homeschool community, because we really want to make sure that the most amount of people know what's going on and what's available to them in this area. So we will see y'all next week.
Hi, everyone.
And we'll love together, we'll learn together, explore this whole wide world together. No matter where we are.